Two-time major champion John Daly is known for his antics both on the course and off it. His behavior at the 2011 Australian Open earned him a fair bit of controversy, but now, years later, Daly has let us in on the truth. Daly recalled the days after his mother's passing, his behavior at the Australian Open, and how he used golf to cope with the trauma. All that and much more in today's video. Starting with, how did Daly stir up controversy at the Australian Open? The year is 2011, and John Daly is seen making his way towards Lakes Golf Club in Sydney ahead of the Australian Open. The man sticks out like a sore thumb with his non-country club appearance, but that's what fans love about him. Daly had caused quite a stir in the golfing world in 2009 and 2010, owing to a few violations, a gambling addiction, and domestic disturbances. Everyone was excited to see him there, but you could tell from the look on Daly's face that he wasn't in the best mood. Nevertheless, the Open started off without a hitch. The American golfer struggled throughout the course, but his nightmarish performance took a turn for the worse at the 10th hole when he was awarded a 2-point penalty for accidentally striking another golfer's ball. Daly was visibly upset, but he continued on to the 11th hole, where things went from bad to worse to downright catastrophic. The two-time major champion dunked not one, not two, but 7 balls into the water before angrily grabbing his son and exiting the tournament. Putting over 3 balls in a water hazard was virtually unheard of until Daly's 2011 performance, which might have been what frustrated him more. The professional golfer signed his scoreboard, shook his partner's hand, and said, "I'm off." Not surprisingly, this didn't sit well with the organizers of the Australian Open, particularly with the tournament's director, Trevor Herden, who wanted Daly penalized by every major golfing association he was part of. Moving on, could Daly's antics be explained? While the American professional golfer isn't one to turn back and explain his behavior, Daly felt like his behavior on the course that day warranted an explanation. The man recalled the event in a recent interview and revealed that he had actually lost his mother 3 days prior to the event. Lou Daly was a homemaker originally from California. The Dalys lived a typical middle-class life in the southern states, with the family of 6 frequently moving from one suburban town to the other. Daly's father took up work wherever he could, but was a construction worker for the most part. Years later, John Daly would ascribe his alcoholism to his father's verbal and emotional abuse growing up. John was close with his mother and recalled her being a shoulder to cry on. Daly stated that he had lost his mother 3 days prior to the event and had initially planned on exiting the Australian Open to attend his mother's funeral. His brother, however, encouraged him to play and that the funeral would happen after he got back. As we came to know, Daly exited the event way ahead of schedule. Moving on, why was Herden out for blood? It's unclear whether Herden, the Australian Open tour director, knew of Daly's mother's passing, but we'll give him the benefit of the doubt, especially considering the fact that Daly himself failed to mention it in a subsequent tweet, which seemingly explained his behavior. In his tweet, Daly claimed that his reason for walking off and signing his scorecard was simply because he didn't have any more balls to play with. When you run out of balls, you run out of balls. Yes, I shook my player's partner's hands and signed my card with rules official. The American professional golfer was adamant that he hadn't violated any of the Open's rules by walking off. Herden, however, thought his behavior was disappointing and unprofessional. In an interview after the fact, the tour director claimed that Daly would never be welcomed back to any other Open event in Australia and urged the American and European tours to reprimand the volatile golfer. PGA of Australia Chief Executive Brian Thorburn echoed Herden's disappointment, confirming Daly didn't receive an appearance fee from playing at the Lakes and revealing the American's invitation to play in the Australian PGA Championship has been revoked. Golf Australia doesn't have the authority to penalize Daly, but Herden was out for blood. He voiced his opinion in several interviews after the event, stating that Daly's behavior that day had tarnished the game's image and was disrespectful to the event, the game, and the people who had made it happen. Herden and Thorburn stated that the American would never be called back for another Open on Australian soil ever again. Let's talk about what was it like growing up for Daly. Daly's never been known to have much of a soft side. This isn't to imply that fans never believed he had one, but the professional golfer has kept quiet about his childhood, his life growing up in the southern states, and his life at home. What we do know about his personal life is that he's had quite a fair bit of complications with gambling addiction and alcoholism. The professional golfer sat down for a one-on-one interview with Graham Benzinger and revealed instances from his childhood, his relationship with his parents, and the father he hoped he would be for his kids. Daly started off by remembering his mother as an angel. He claimed she'd always be there for him through the good and the bad. The golfer went a step ahead and claimed that his relationship with his mother was the only stable relationship he had ever had, accusing his ex-wives of only being with him when things were good and leaving him the second he hit a rough patch. Daly stated that he and his 4 siblings saw very little of their father, who would usually take the night shift. He claimed his father's way of parenting was more tough love compared to his mother's nurturing. The American golfer stated that he hadn't had contact with his 80-year-old father in several years after a 4th of July incident where his drunk dad pointed a gun toward him. His takeaway from his childhood and his relationship with his father was that he would do everything he could could to be there for his own children. Daly went on to talk about his youngest son, John Daly II, and how he makes it a point to make sure his son knows he's loved and protected. Now, on to other news. First off, was John Daly drunk on live television? Daly's swing coach, Butch Harmon, was the first person to out him for being an alcoholic when he quit in 2008 by claiming that the only thing the golfer cared about was getting drunk. Daly quickly responded by refuting Harmon's claims and accused him of trying to damage his career. But a few years on, we found out that Daly did have an alcohol addiction, and it nearly saw him on the brink of being expelled from the Golfing Association numerous times. Most recently, Daly could be seen accepting beers from fans and dousing one drink too many at the SEC Nation ahead of a game between Arkansas Razorbacks and Cincinnati Bearcats. "I'm not going to lie, I'm drunk," Daly said in the highlight of the show, in response to a question that had little to do with his sobriety. Ironically, Daly had committed to sobriety back in 2010. Next up, is Daly's health taking a turn for the worse? In 2020, Daly revealed he had been battling bladder cancer. The 56-year-old revealed that doctors had successfully removed the tumor from his body, but claimed an 85% chance of resurgence. Daly spoke about his health in a recent interview, wherein he had a few choice words to say about the American healthcare system. According to the larger-than-life professional golfer, the American healthcare system is deliberately keeping the cure for cancer from the general public. He made sure to voice his controversial opinions and claimed that cancer was, in fact, 100% curable. But the healthcare system wasn't willing to let go of the billions of dollars that cancer screening and surgeries brought in. Lastly, will Daly be retiring anytime soon? American professional golfer John Daly claims he'll play golf until the day he dies. The 56-year-old has battled his fair share of health issues, controversies, and a surprisingly topsy-turvy stat record in his professional career. But despite all of it, Daly claims he won't retire until he absolutely has to. Owing to his 2 major wins, Daly is exempt from the PGA Tour till he's 60. However, he hasn't been able to meet the required criteria to play in the FedEx Cup since 2006. Daly's most recent appearance was at Sanford International. "Hopefully everyone comes out and watches us play the Sanford Open this weekend," said the professional golfer. He went on to say that the course was in great shape and fans would have the time of their lives watching players grip it and rip it. That's all for today's video. Do you think it's time Daly hangs up his clubs and calls it a day, or do you think he still has a few good years left in him? Comment down below what you think, and be sure to give this video a thumbs up, follow for more, and we'll see you next time.